Welcome, traveler. You found Third Shift HFY. The story begins now.
Pharaoh ash blew like ground glass across the plain. Under twin suns, the ruins of Vailmar 9 shimmered, heat, smoke, and the thin whistle of wind through broken steel. The Aerofi Spire clan had formed a crescent line around their last banner. Armor cracked, silver-veined skin glowing faintly where blood met air. When the Thresson Swarmborn surged again, thrilled shells clacking, percussive battle clicks echoing, Velafa planted her feet and raised her spear. It snapped on the first impact. Splinters of alloy spun away. The shock drove her to one knee. She tasted copper, heard her own heartbeat thud against the storm.
Stand. Breathe. Again.
The Thresson pressed close, four-legged crustacean warforms. Split frills flared, black eyes bright with hunger. One slammed a claw down to pin a banner. Velatha grabbed a fallen shard of spear, drove it into the joint, and bought a breath.
Velatha, our line is gone.
Not yet, she meant to say. Her voice didn't come. The sky answered for her. A long, descending scream tore the clouds. Sound bent. Shadows rippled over the ash as something white-hot punched atmosphere, trailing a tail of fire that grew and grew until it eclipsed the suns. The Thresson faltered, frills rattling, clicks stuttering out of rhythm. Impact. A bloom of dust and light rolled across the plain, rippling banners, flattening smoke. For a heartbeat, there was only a crater, hissing. Then a figure rose from it, a human, compact, in scorched drop armor, scored with re-entry burns. Helmet retracted with a hiss. A woman's face, sun-browned, jaw set, eyes steady. She checked a readout on her wrist, tapped a control, and lifted a matte rifle from a mag clamp on her thigh. She glanced at the banner, then at Velatha.
Mind if I join the fight?
Velatha pushed to her feet, found breath, found her voice.
Permission granted.
Rhea nodded once. No flourish. She stepped past Velatha as if walking into rain. The Thresson hissed and charged. Rhea exhaled, shoulders dropping a fraction. The rifle spoke in flat, disciplined bursts. Shell frills shattered. Black eyes went dull. She moved tight and economical. Every step a choice, every shot a solution. Behind her, Velatha felt the line stiffen. Arathai grips tightened on blade halves. Someone laughed once, broken, shocked, alive.
In the shadow of the moons, perhaps we were not abandoned.
Across the ash, a taller Thresson reared, crested, armored thicker than the rest. Its percussive clicks rolled like drums.
Small storm. Break it.
Rhea didn't look away from the warlord. She rolled her neck, reset her stance.
Okay.
The countercharge began. Wind howled through the ruins of Vailmar 9, scattering metallic dust over the broken line of Aerothi soldiers. For a heartbeat, nothing moved, until the air itself screamed. A white line tore across the twin suns, every shadow stretched long. Every heart stopped. The object struck the plain with the sound of thunder trapped in a drum. The shockwave hit seconds later, flattening banners, throwing ash like surf. The Thresson staggered, chittering in confusion as molten glass rippled outward from the crater's rim. When the light finally died, the silence that followed felt heavier than sound. The Erlothi remembered that silence, the moment when even the swarm forgot its hunger. Velatha pressed a hand to her ear crest, struggling to hear past the ringing. Her armor's internal readouts flickered, oxygen warnings, suit breaches. But her eyes were fixed on the crater ahead. Steam coiled like breath from a god's mouth. Something moved inside it. At first she thought it was another Thresson machine, a pod, still glowing at the seams. Then the hatch exploded outward. A shape climbed free through smoke and molten dust. A human, compact, armor blackened, blue-white vents along the spine pulsing with heat. She rolled her shoulder once, dusted ash from her chest plate, and straightened. Even at distance, there was something unmistakable about her balance. Too still, too deliberate.
Impossible.
The Thresson hissed. Half the swarm began to regroup, claws clicking in agitation. Inside the crater, the human turned, scanning the horizon. Her visor split open and folded back, revealing a face lined with soot and calm resolve.
Planetary insertion complete. Kind of rough landing.
She checked her wrist display, the holographic readout flickering amber. Gravity, oxygen, hostiles, all present. Rhea drew a breath, slung her rifle from the mag clamp at her thigh, and looked up to see the Arothi staring back at her from the ridge.
Local command?
Velatha blinked, realizing the words came through in her own tongue, translated by the human's device with seamless precision. She tightened her grip on the broken spear shaft.
I am Velatha of the Spire clan. You fell from the sky.
Technically, dropped. Mind if I help clean up down here?
The human's voice was level, not a boast, not a question asked for permission, just the statement of someone already moving forward. Velatha watched her advance down the crater slope, boots crunching through cooling glass. Each step seemed to weigh the world back into motion. Around them, the Threxen began to recover their rhythm. The nearest warlord raised a jagged staff and bellowed in percussion clicks.
The small storm walks. Break it.
Rhea raised her rifle. Velatha took the shard of her spear in both hands. The swarm charged, and thus began the hour the Arothi later called the Turning, when the ash did not fall upon the dying, but upon those who came to kill them. The air cracked as the Threxen charged, an avalanche of chitin in rhythm, claws pounding the ground in perfect unison. The sound became percussion, a battlefield heartbeat. Velatha planted her feet, ash swirling around her ankles. Her eyes, two upper, two lower, narrowed in disbelief. The human didn't take cover. She walked forward. Rhea Solon's armor vents hissed as cooling gas vented in fine mist. Her HUD painted the swarm in red arcs. She dialed her rifle's pulse regulator down to 3-round bursts and exhaled through her teeth.
Let's move.
The first volley tore into the swarm, shredding the lead rank. Velatha lunged beside her, broken spear spinning in arcs of silver and light. Together, they fought like opposing elements. Rhea's precision anchoring Velatha's motion, structure meeting flow. An Arothi soldier screamed as a Threxen broke through the flank. Before Velatha could react, Rhea pivoted, slammed her rifle up under the creature's mand, frilled crest, and fired once. The body dropped smoking.
You kill without pause.
Don't have time to hesitate.
Velatha twirled her shattered spear in salute, then dove back into the melee. Their movements began to sync, Rhea's bursts covering Velatha's leaps, Velatha's arcs clearing Rhea's flanks. The human didn't command, she fit. The Arothi line, moments from collapse, felt the change ripple through them. They rose, voices sharp, battle chants fracturing the wind. The machine of war learned a new rhythm that day. The Arothi called it the storm pattern. Others called it hope. Flashes of light painted the sky, rifle fire and spear arcs crossing in blinding harmony. The Threxen faltered, their unity broken. Vrisk, the warlord, bellowed across the plain. The ground trembled as his shock troops emerged, towering Threxen plated in obsidian armor, claws dragging molten lines through the dust.
They bring their armored brood.
Good. I was starting to warm up.
She dropped to one knee, adjusted her mag stabilizers, and drew a small cylinder from her belt, pressed it to the ground. A faint hum spread outward as an energy field pulsed in concentric rings.
What is that?
Insurance.
The shock troops charged. The field flared blue. Rhea's HUD pinged. She squeezed the trigger once. The plane erupted in a wave of concussive force that tore dust into storm spirals. When the light faded, the Threxen advance was gone, crushed in silence, smoke trailing where they'd stood. Velatha stood motionless, the shard of her spear trembling in her grip. She turned to Rhea, who was already reloading.
You fell from the heavens to fight beside us.
No. I fell to make sure you could stand again.
In that moment, two wars changed. The one fought on Vaelmar 9, and the one fought in every heart that watched the skies afterward. Smoke hung over the plain in layered sheets, thick enough to paint the suns in rust. For the first time since dawn, the swarm hesitated. Rhea dropped her last empty mag into the ash and slammed a new one home. Her armor's cooling vents hissed once, then went quiet, overheated. One breath from failure. Across from her, Velatha drove the jagged half of her spear into the soil and raised her voice, amplified through the clan's comm bands.
Form on the storm. Shields high. The sky has given us thunder. Answer it.
Dozens of Arothi lifted their fractured shields in a ripple of silver. The line reformed around Rhea's stance. They had no plan, only rhythm. A pattern born between two hearts that refused to yield. The Threxen warlord Vrisk shrieked, his frilled crest flaring. Obsidian shock troops rallied behind him, claws slamming against chitin armor in furious percussion. Rhea looked over at Velatha. The alien met her gaze and nodded once.
On my mark, move like you mean it.
She thumbed her rifle's side control. The weapon whined into overdrive. Dust jumped from the ground at the sound.
Mark!
The line surged. Aerothy voices rose in a single piercing cry, half song, half scream. Rhea sprinted ahead of them, boots carving furrows in ash, rifle hammering in disciplined bursts. Valatha vaulted over her shoulder, silver veins burning like comet trails. The countercharge slammed into the Threxan with the weight of history behind it. Blades met claws, sparks met bloodlight. For every Aerothy who fell, 2 Threxan broke.
You are ash. You are small.
Yeah, but we burn hotter.
She threw her last grenade, blue-white plasma folding outward like a blooming star. The shockwave rolled through the swarm, toppling the warlord to one knee. Valatha landed beside her, spear haft raised high. For an instant they stood together in the stormlight, human and Aerothea, side by side, reflections of fire and silver. Then the Threxan broke. The swarm scattered into the distance, their war drums dissolving into the wind. Valatha dropped her spear and stared across the smoking field.
Vaelmar 9 stands.
Let's make sure it stays that way.
They turned toward the horizon, the twin suns rising through the haze behind them like watching eyes. And the Council's record ends there, not with conquest, but with silence. The silence after a legend takes its first breath. Wind crept across the plain, gentle now, carrying the scent of ozone and burnt alloy. The battlefield that had roared like a storm only hours ago lay still, Threxan bodies cooling, their frilled crests folded like dying flowers. Rhea knelt beside a fallen Arawathi, fingers brushing the shattered armor until she found the faint pulse beneath. The being's silver-veined skin flickered once, then steadied.
You saved her.
No, not me. We did.
Valatha turned her 4 eyes toward the horizon, where the twin suns dipped behind the haze. For the first time in memory, she heard no swarm song, no clicking rhythm, no hunger, only the hiss of wind through ruins. The surviving Aerothi formed small circles among the wreckage. They sang in low, humming chords, funeral tones resonant enough to tremble in the dust. Rhea stood among them, helmet clipped at her side, head bowed.
Their song is for the fallen. We promise to remember their shape when they return to the Latches.
Where I'm from, we say their names out loud, so silence doesn't swallow them.
Valatha studied her for a long moment. The human's eyes didn't look away. They carried the steady, distant calm of someone who had seen too many endings and decided to keep going anyway.
Your kind fights as if grief were a weapon.
Sometimes it is.
They stood together, ash rising in slow spirals around them, until only the wind remained. And so ended the Battle of Vaelmar 9. No triumph, no anthem, only the quiet pact between 2 warriors who refused to let the other stand alone. The hololith shimmered in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, casting pale blue light across tiered marble and shadowed faces. Dozens of species sat in silence as the recording played again. Grainy footage of Vaelmar 9. The sky split open, the storm descending. The human fell through fire. The Aerothi line held. And then, the world turned quiet. The hololith froze on the image of 2 figures, one silver, one human, standing in a haze of drifting ash. No banners, no triumph, only endurance.
Record this under the Index of Cross-Species Engagements. Battle of Vaelmar 9. Classification: unprecedented.
A hush followed. The old chronicler's 4 hands trembled as he set the stylus down.
What designation do we assign to the human?
Narvo glanced at the frozen image again. The woman's expression, calm, unflinching, held no trace of pride, only purpose.
She was the spark that reignited a dying world. She stood where gods once fell.
He leaned back, voice fading into the chamber's still air.
Designation: the Stormborn.
And so her name was etched into the council archives, carried from one generation to the next, not as a soldier, not as a conqueror, but as proof that even the smallest fire, when it falls from the sky, can teach a world to stand again.